Hey guys, welcome to Smack Talk Wrestling Reviews. I am your host, Boise, and this is the first Raw of 2019. We have a epic episode of Raw to go into. We have returns, we have a tribute to a legend in WWE, we have a main event which could have easily torn down the whole building, physically tore down the whole building, and much more. With that said and done, let's just hit the music. So we kicked off the show with a brawl backstage, and this was between Seth Rollins and Bobby Lashley, and these two men were beating the living hell out of each other, which was absolutely bloody fantastic. You had the backstage men who were managers, superstars who aren't going to be on the show, Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins, trying to pull both men off, and you could just, this is a physical start to the show. You usually don't get to see this, and it was really good. You saw it going through backstage and everything like that, so it finally got out onto the open ramp, and both men were trying to kill each other. It was absolutely fantastic. Finally, when the dust was settled and both men were separated, John Cena comes out, obviously cutting a John Cena promo, a decent promo. John Cena's really good at these. And he was interrupted, of course, by Drew McIntyre. I was kind of hoping that Becky Lynch would come out and interrupt him again, because she did a brilliant job. Probably a better job than Drew McIntyre to, interrupt John Cena. Both men passed some words between each other. The typical John Cena versus heel promo. It was lackluster, to say the least. Drew challenged John to a match. John accepted. Both men were about to take each other on, and next thing we know, Bobby Lashley and his assistant, I'm going to say Lio Rush, he's hype man as he says, but I'm pretty sure he's just an assistant. Lio Rush says, Raw is cancelled, we're not going to do any more because we can't control that madman Seth Rollins. Next thing we know, Seth Rollins attacks Bobby Lashley yet again. John Cena comes out to help him because Dean Ambrose gets involved, Drew McIntyre gets involved, and next thing we know, Finn Balor gets involved to help the baby faces. This is a really heated segment, and obviously it was going to start a 6-man tag team which came up next. Apart from the John Cena Drew McIntyre bit, I thought the actual brawl between Bobby Lashley and Seth Rollins was actually really good. I can't see Bobby going the distance and doing this every bloody week, but I think it's a good start to 2019 for both Seth and Bobby Lashley. Good to see John Cena back on TV yet again. I think his best segment was definitely against Becky Lynch, but going it verbally against Drew McIntyre is technically a good thing for Drew himself. I'm going to give this segment a 6 out of 10. It was better than average, but it could have done a lot better. I think the Seth Rollins and Bobby Lashley parts did definitely save this segment. That moved us on to straight into that 6-man tag team match where we saw the baby faces of Finn Balor, John Cena and Seth Rollins taking on the heels of the Intercontinental Champion Dean Ambrose, Drew McIntyre and Bobby Lashley. And if I hear Michael Cole call Bobby Lashley the mighty Bobby Lashley one more time, I will kick Michael Cole in the bloody nuts. I do not understand why they have to give everyone a nickname. It makes no sense. He's Bobby Lashley, just call him bloody Bobby Lashley. That's all you need to do. But yeah, the match itself was a decent match. I know some people found it to be a little bit too long, and it really did build up quite well. For me, as a fan of tag team wrestling, I thought this was well put together as a build up to Seth being tagged in, because let's be honest, he's the hottest commodity on Raw right now, and his build up is going better and better every week. So having him being the last man to tag in and really dominate the match was a smart idea. You had Finn and John Cena being able to show off their moves. You also had Drew McIntyre, Dean Ambrose and Bobby Lashley able to show their dominating abilities, as well as being heels, cheating and working together. And then when finally Seth freaking Rollins tagged in, he kind of mopped the floor with everyone and finally pinned Dean Ambrose. This was a big moment. The babyfaces cheered, but you saw on the big screen, you saw none other than Triple H talking to both Bayley and Sasha Banks. Seth did not look happy, even though he had just pinned his archenemy Dean Ambrose and marched straight backstage to confront Triple H and demanded a Intercontinental Championship match. Best thing about it, Triple H gave them the match as a Falls Count Anywhere tonight as our main event. I was actually really happy when it was like, oh, by the way, this is going to be your main event. I was like, yes, this is what we need. This is a big match and both men can really go out, especially when it's a Falls Count everywhere. A match type you don't often get to see on Monday Night Raw. So it was good to see that as well. So for me, I'm going to give this a solid 7 out of 10, especially because Seth Rollins was the best part of this opening segment. Next up, we had the tribute towards Mean Gene, and I honestly was a bit concerned when they announced it was going to be Hulk Hogan coming back to Raw to, you know, preside on this. And I actually gotta give Hulk Hogan credit. Now, a lot of people have criticised Hulk Hogan, taking a lot of the spotlight away, you know, quite a bit of the spotlight away from the tribute. But I think the video package was brilliant. You saw the videos of Hulk Hogan literally tearing up every time. I think that is, you know, I know Hogan is an actor and he's been at it for a long time, but Mean Gene was one of his closest friends, and Hogan's been Hogan no matter what, and he did get a massive pop, and I've got to give that. I was a bit surprised how big Hogan's pop was compared to John. John Cena had a good massive pop, but Hogan's one seemed to be at the same level. Even with everything Hogan's done, he still gets those big pops, which I thought would be, you know, interesting to see how that went between the two. But yes, Hogan did cut a fantastic farewell tribute to his late friend Mean Gene, and I have got to give every single bit of credit to our WWE, Hulk Hogan, and everyone who worked on that video montage for him. It was just brilliant, and Mean Gene is a voice of a generation. He's the best interviewer by far in some people's opinion. For me, he's up there with JR as one of the best commentators, best interviewers. Just, he is a voice of a generation. I remember watching him on WCW more than WWF as a kid because I grew up on that. But he was still the man you think of talking to Macho Man, Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, Sting. Those, you know, those were the interviews I remember with Mean Gene, and it was nice to see WWE show those clips, show those pictures of his time with both WCW and WWF. So for me, it's a great segment, really touching. I really enjoyed it. I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10. I think Hogan did a fantastic job in this. Next up, we got the Raw Tag Team Championship match between the Revival and Bobby Roode and Chad Gable in a Lumberjacks match after the confusion of last week. It was nice to see. This was a very, very strong match. This was a very strong match showing both the talents of both teams. The Revival, for me, is the best team on Raw, and I think Gable and Bobby Roode, for me, have been a really surprising team. I honestly, again, I keep saying this, I honestly keep thinking this is a team which is going to implode on itself because I want to see Bobby Roode turn heel. But in the meantime, they're having such good matches against such a good team, it kind of makes up for all the mistakes WWE have been doing on the Raw Tag Team brand. So for me, it was brilliant. It's probably Raw's best tag team match in such a long time. I thought last week's one was really good, but I think this one was even better, especially showcasing both teams' abilities. It did look like the Revival were about to get the victory before the referee made a mistake again when Scott Dawson put his leg underneath the rope to escape the pinfall, but he didn't. He counted free, and even the Ascension, Heath Slater, everyone noticed, apart from the referee it seemed, that the Revival had got their foot underneath the ropes to get out of the pin. It's a bit of a shame. This is absolutely gonna kill fans if the Revival do not get an opportunity, a proper opportunity to win those Raw Tag Team titles, because they do deserve it. They are the team everyone wants to see finally hold those titles. Yes, we're probably gonna wait till Royal Rumble till we see these teams finally get their tag team titles, but it's just getting frustrating on how they're going to screw over the Revival each and every week until they finally get the titles. So for me, it's a very solid match, very entertaining. It's just the ending which really kind of annoyed me yet again. But I can see why WWE are doing it, because they want to screw out the Revival out of these titles, but not on purpose, by referee mistakes. So I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10. Next up, we got a quite surprisingly good match between Elias and Baron Corbin. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. These two aren't usually have the best chemistry, but no, I will give both men their credit. They used the big moves to get the fans excited, and they kept on moving, which allowed the pressure and everything like that, because some people were trying to see CM Punk, and then they kind of realised this match is actually better than they expected, and it was like, oh, actually, this is a good match. This is actually what we want to see, and I think this is a good little rivalry between Baron Corbin and Elias. Now, I do hope that it does, it doesn't go on too long. I hope it gets to Royal Rumble, and then there you go, we can finally end that rivalry, because it's not going to do either man much good if this rivalry continues like WWE like to book. For me, I think this was a surprisingly good match, entertaining from start to finish. Didn't go on too long, which is always a good thing. So I'm going to give it a solid 7 out of 10, because I think both men deserve it, and it shows how good of hard workers they can be in ring. Next up, we got the face-to-face between Brock Lesnar and Braun Strowman. Now, the whole concept of this was Brock Lesnar's going to go face-to-face in the ring before their Royal Rumble match against Braun Strowman. And then Braun goes out to the ring, calls out Brock Lesnar. Well, doesn't call him out, just literally shouts his name. Brock Lesnar doesn't come out. He's backstage with Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman cuts a good promo, as you expect from Paul Heyman. And it's then when you kind of realise Braun Strowman's promo skills are the best in this situation, because I like Paul Heyman. I think Paul Heyman's fantastic, but when you got Paul Heyman, it's kind of intimidating for a superstar like Braun Strowman, who's not, let's be honest, he's not the best talker in the company. He's got "get these hands" as his catchphrase, and it's kind of, that's all he's got as his, promo skills. Everything else is kind of like, yeah. And that's kind of showed what this match was. It was kind of like, we've kind of seen this match a few times, and we've seen the face-to-face a few times now, and Braun's never been able to pin Brock yet. So it's kind of that question of, how are they going to get around this? How are they going to get across from this? It really didn't get the fans excited about the Braun Strowman Brock Lesnar match. I do blame WWE, because I think they ripped themselves in a corner when they put the belt back on Brock Lesnar. I think they should have given it to Braun and allowed others to actually have some time, and let Brock Lesnar do what he wants to do in Royal Rumble and, WrestleMania. Let him do the matches he wants to do. But he doesn't need to be champion. He doesn't need that. He's already a big attraction. You don't need to put a title on there, which we're not going to get to see. So for me, I'm going to give this promo, I'm going to give it a 4. Because it didn't do up for the rivalry. It didn't do up for the match itself for Royal Rumble. It just didn't do up for both men. Next up, we got a mixed tag team match where we saw Apollo Crews and Ember Moon taking on Jinder Mahal and Alicia Fox. This was a decent-ish, it's not decent, it did a purpose. Mainly, Jinder Mahal was really good at pretty much pointing out and insulting people in the audience, which was quite good. Alicia Fox is good at that comedic, kind of ditzy heel figure, which she's good at. And, this is kind of one of those matches which helps build momentum for two superstars who are on the rise. So in that case, it's Ember Moon and Apollo Crews, who have good chemistry in ring. It was kind of like, oh, these are the best, Apollo takes out Jinder, Alicia Fox is in the ring, Ember Moon takes her out, 1, 2, 3, the babyfaces win. Yeah, it's kind of a momentum building match. It really does, and it just shows you that Jinder Mahal and Alicia Fox have a very important job as being enhancement for those type of superstars, and they do a fantastic job in doing that. And I'm glad that we're getting still mixed tag team matches. I think they should become a staple to WWE, because a lot of companies use them in the indie scene, and they are very popular with fans. I wish we did actually have proper mixed tag team matches where women can fight men and men can fight, but that's not going to happen. We know that's not going to happen, but this is the closest we're going to get, and hopefully we actually start building them and start using them properly. But right now they're being used right, so yeah, I'm going to give this a 5 out of 10. It's nothing special, you could skip it if you need to, but you know, good for Alicia and Jinder. They actually had a good point in this show. Next up, we got the first ever episode of A Moment of Bliss. This is Alexa Bliss's new talk show. You know, it's like the Jericho and all the other ones, all the Cutting Edge and the Peep Show and all this, like the Kevin Owens show. It's exactly like that. You give a heel a talk show, they use it to get over the baby faces to get themselves a match, or other heels to have matches. It's kind of used like that, and this is a good way to keep Alexa Bliss on TV while she's still recovering from injury. And her first guest of the show was none other than the Raw Women's Champion Ronda Rousey, and I've got to give Ronda Rousey credit where credit is due. She did exactly what she needed to do. She called out her opponent who she wants to take on at the Royal Rumble. She praised her, she got her over with the crowd, and it was none other than Sasha Banks. And this was really well put together because Alexa Bliss thought she was talking about her. Nia Jax came out annoyed that Ronda Rousey wants to take on Sasha Banks and not her because she thinks she deserves a rematch. And Sasha Banks came out to thank Ronda for her opportunity, and she's going to teach Ronda how to lose gracefully, which I thought was great. And Sasha Banks had the best line on the whole show, where she called Nia Jax a bitch and told her to get in the ring, which was absolutely fantastic. So for me, this Moment of Bliss, plus it led up to a match for winner. Whoever wins the match between Nia Jax and Sasha Banks will become Ronda Rousey's opponent at WrestleMania. So it added extra to the match which was coming up next. So for me, I'm going to give this a 6 out of 10. All good for me. Like I said, we had that match between Sasha Banks and Nia Jax. The winner of this will take on Ronda Rousey at the Royal Rumble for the Raw Women's Championship. We had Bayley in Sasha Banks' corner, of course, because we still have the Boss and Hug connection, because that is one of still the best tag team names ever. I know it's just a mockery of the Rock and Sock connection, but who cares? I like Bayley and Sasha Banks teaming up. And we had Tamina, who surprisingly didn't get announced or anything. The commentating team went, "Oh, and Tamina's here." That is Tamina's career right now. Oh, Tamina's here in Nia Jax's corner. And the match was actually decent. There was a few botches. I've got to give Sasha Banks a lot of worries when she does something, and every time it looks like she's about to break her bloody neck. Sasha, we love you, love. Don't do that. You're going to break your bloody neck. My God, I sound really Yorkshire doing that. But yes, Sasha Banks really came across a few times where it looked like she tried to kill herself. Nia Jax I've got to give this was a good match for Nia Jax. She looked really well. She looked psychotic, and that very evil grinning smile which she pulls off very, very well was fantastic. There was a few times during the match where Nia overpowered Sasha Banks, and Sasha's selling was fantastic. There's one point where Nia Jax just lifts Sasha Banks up and just throws her onto some boxes, and it's just like, oh my God. And I was glad that the referee give these opportunity, give time for these big segments outside the ring to happen. Sasha Banks did finally get Nia Jax into the bank statement. Nia did tap out, and now Sasha Banks is our #1 contender to take on Ronda Rousey at the Royal Rumble. I think this is a good choice. I think Sasha Banks has been not near the title scene for a long time now. I think it's a great opportunity to show everyone exactly how good she is. She is fantastic, and I think she's one of those rare women in WWE who can probably beat Ronda Rousey, and people would believe it. So for me, I'm going to give this a 6 out of 10. Both women did a fantastic job. Last but not least, it came to our main event, and that was Seth freaking Rollins taking on Dean Ambrose in a Falls Count Anywhere match for the Intercontinental Championship. My favourite favourite belt on Raw, because it does feel like it's more important than the Universal title. Of course it is. But this was a fantastic match. Seth was on top throughout the whole match. Dean was trying to retreat quite a few times, and both men were non-stop. They pulled off big moves outside the ring and backstage, inside the crowd, which was bloody brilliant, and in the ring as well. Both men just looked like they were about to kill each other. There's a part in that match where Seth Rollins legitimately punches Dean Ambrose in the nose, and you see it, and they show it in slow motion, and Dean's face is like, oh god. It's a really good match. It's actually, for me, probably better than their TLC match, which was really good, but this was better. This really was a good conclusion to their rivalry. And the only thing was, I kind of saw the ending coming. And I know a lot of people say, oh well, I saw that coming. But no, I actually did. I said all the time while I was watching this, Bobby Lashley's going to get involved in this match. Bobby Lashley's going to get involved in this match. And what happens? Seth's about to pin Dean Ambrose to reclaim the Intercontinental Championship. And Bobby Lashley gets involved. Takes down Seth Rollins. Destroys him in the ring. Dean gets his arm just over Seth. And Dean is still an Intercontinental Champion. Yes, that will probably conclude their rivalry for a while, where Seth can concentrate on taking on Bobby Lashley until he wins the Royal Rumble, becomes Universal Champion at WrestleMania, and Raw finally has a Universal Champion that we can all enjoy. Because let's be honest, I can't see Brock Lesnar losing the title at the Rumble. Can you? So for me, this is a really decent match, apart from the ending, which was a bit predictable. But throughout it, it was a hard-hitting match, and you can show why both men hate each other throughout it all. So for me, I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10, an entertaining main event, and a great way to end the show. Especially when Bobby Lashley, after Dean won the match, put Seth Rollins through a table, and the crowd just chanting, "We hate you, Lashley." So for me, great end to the show. And there you go, guys. That was Raw for this week. What did I think? I think it was a better show. It's definitely seen the improvements coming in on Raw. A lot more focus on good matches, new matchups. Definitely. I think that Bobby Lashley and Seth Rollins could have a very decent rivalry. Hopefully it won't go beyond Royal Rumble, aka Seth Rollins needs to win the Royal Rumble. But everything else was really well put together. Ronda Rousey getting Sasha Banks over was brilliant. The tribute to Mean Gene was well put together, and Hulk Hogan did a fantastic job in that. No matter what you say about Hogan and what you think about him, he's not my favourite 80s wrestler. I'm sorry, but that's always going to be Ric Flair. But Hogan did a fantastic job in this. Everything else, the build-ups to everything else, especially the tag team division actually finally having a really good match, just saved it for me. So I'm going to give this week's episode of Raw, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Fantastic show. But what was your favourite part of the show, guys? Leave it in the comments below. And don't forget, if you do like our videos here, don't forget to like, subscribe, and press the bell to keep notified. You might notice there's now a bell, a subscribe button, and all that, and a like. So if you do like all our videos, please do all that. And if you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do @SmackTalkYouTube. And if you want to follow me on the old Twitter, it's @Boise88. Just before we disappear, I'm just going to give you a quick announcement. On Saturday, me and Mr. J will be doing the TakeOver Blackpool review after the show. So 2 o'clock, I think it's 6 o'clock over here, 7 o'clock over here. We'll be watching. We'll probably be drunk, so we might be doing it on the Sunday, but it will be us doing our first review together in some time. But yeah, check it out, guys, and we'll see you next time on Smack Talk Wrestling Reviews.